Welcome to the Practice Leader Podcast, brought to you by Ascent, a show for medical practice administrators who feel stuck in the daily chaos and want to lead with intention. I'm Zed Williamson, founder and CEO of Physician Growth Accelerator.
And I'm Paul Richards, president of Ascent and director of otolaryngology at the University of Utah School of Medicine. Every week, we explore what high-performing leaders are doing in real time, so you can stop reacting and start leading with purpose, strategy, and results.
Paul, you and I have had some conversations, and they've been around a general theme, and that is, we are focused on the work that we do day to day, but when we reflect back at the influence that others have had on us, when we spend a little time to think about those little interactions, those big interactions, the things we learn from others, some might call it guiding, some might call it mentorship, the impact of that is enormous.
Yeah, I've been thinking kind of how did I get into a position of leadership? Now, you can define leadership in different ways, but how did I kind of get to where I am in my career where I'm making important decisions? All decisions are important, but some big decisions and people rely on my guidance. And I just kept thinking back at various interactions through my life that I was able to be kind of guided or mentored by someone, or sometimes in ways that was me looking for it. But most of the time, it was me needing to kind of accept it, um, and allow that to happen. Even more than that was when I was younger in my career. I'm still young in my career, um, but I'm still needing mentoring. I think there'll be a point here where I'm going to be able to then be a little bit better of a mentor. But right now, I still need guidance and mentoring. And um, part of it, when you're younger or you're learning or you feel maybe you entered a new job, um, maybe you don't feel qualified. And I think the natural thing for people to do is to kind of not is kind of back out and kind of stay on the shadows and kind of outside of things. And what's benefited me is people that have kind of forced me to come into the mix and get out of my shell and learn. So here's an example I have, Zed, and my son. Well, you're trying out for soccer for a team. He's 8 years old, and he hadn't been playing as much soccer as these other kids. And he went out and started practicing with them. And it was clear that they were better. They were more experienced. They had done this. They knew what they were doing. And he knew he was good, but he realized pretty quick, like, I'm not as good as these kids. And so I was on the sidelines kind of watching him. I had his water bottle, and he came over and he goes, "Dad, these are really good kids at soccer. I don't think I'm going to make the team." And he was kind of like dejected a little bit. And I gave him water. I didn't say much. And he went back out there and he kept playing and trying to figure it out and running and playing hard. And, about 30 minutes later, he comes back for the water break and he looked at me and goes, "Dad, these kids are really good. I want to be part of this team." And it just clicked on me, like, that has been my experience when I got into a leadership role. I remember everybody there in um, different roles doing leadership things they all were better than me. They all had more experience than me, but I knew I wanted to be like them. And the more I was able to be around them, the more I was able to, kind of become part of the team and feel like I belonged.
It's really interesting. You had mentioned earlier this idea of the difference between you accepting, asking, or someone giving, and the importance of the accepting guidance, right? And what's so cool, like I got chills on the back of my neck when you mentioned what your son said to you after he said, "I want to be on this team." That's because he's a child and he's not a screwed up adult yet. Because, a screwed up adult puts so much weight and so much defensive, self-protecting behavior around, well, I don't need to be on this team. Like that would be more of an adult response, or they don't see my skills. It's just, and it's wild. It's just our ego, and
Yeah,
ego is necessary, but it's not necessarily like when I think of ego, is you want the ego there, but I kind of want him as a passenger in the car, pointing things out that every once in a while I'll pay attention to. I don't want ego driving the car.
yeah,
And that's the difference. Your son, he recognized opportunity, and that's really powerful. And I
yeah,
love that you connect that to the things you've witnessed, because if you're not curious, if you're in a defensive mode, then you'll never learn anything from a mentor or
yeah,
a guide. You
yeah,
won't, there's, and it's unfortunate because there's so much wisdom and knowledge out in the world. And sometimes you're learning things that you don't want to do because the wisdom is of someone that you don't want to emulate.
right.
It's incongruent to your values or whatever, but it's still a valuable lesson. So I think that's a great.
Yeah, and humility, that is not my like like one of my personality qualities. It's like that's a harder thing for me. And so here's what helped me is in my role, there are other people doing what I'm doing. Um, in my university, but also nationally. And so I was able to kind of find a national administrative group, which is called Ascent. And there are other people that are doing the role that I'm doing. And so just by allowing myself to be part of a community, um, it allowed me to have more interactions than I would have had just on a one here and there thing. Because I think my nature would have been in a one time or every so often interaction with people that are better than me. My default would have been to kind of not engage fully or back out or be like, I don't like those guys, kind of thing.
Yep.
But the fact that have put myself in a situation where I'm around it more, that shell was able to get kind of cracked, and I was able to finally kind of break into it. And with me, it took a few times to really let that natural part of me kind of open up to be able to let people in to help me, mentor me, guide me, learn from them, and things like that. So my thought is, if others are looking to have mentors, you got to put yourself in an opportunity to have people mentor you. And whatever means that is, if it's an association, a community, but you've got to have interactions with other people. And so if you're siloed and you're lonely at the top, then you've got to figure out a way to broaden that kind of network. And maybe that's the people that you work with. Maybe it's even people that are in a job category below you, and you don't think you can reach out to them, but maybe you can. And
Yeah, there's so much power there. I know, for me, I joined basically an accountability group in business, a little over 10 years now ago. And there's so much comfort in realizing that other people have questions too. you know, there's like you get into this position where you feel like you're supposed to have all the answers. And if you don't have the answer, you're supposed to kind of fake it till you make it because you should know the answer. You're the leader. And when you get to realize that, wait a second, there's other people with the same questions. There's other people who don't have answers. And connecting with people like that, sharing, there's so much lift, from a personal growth, from a business growth standpoint. To me, it's almost like if no one's ever been snorkeling or scuba diving, and the first time they go, and you go, wow, I just thought this was, you know, this layer of wavy water at the top, and you get exposed to an entire world I think that's what's available when you put yourself out there, like you had mentioned, and when you crack
Yeah.
that shell and go, I don't need to know everything.
Yeah. And I'm not saying, Zed, like, you need to go up to people and be like, "Hey, will you be my mentor? Will you be my
Yeah, right.
guide?" Like, I'm not s and some people do that. I've heard people, "Hey, I'd like to have you as a mentor in my life." That's fine. But I'm saying more just associating and being around people that are maybe a little bit, elevated from your current circumstance, that there's so much power in learning from others, and hopefully you're in a position to kind of receive it and allow it in, and even if you don't, maybe here's the other thing, maybe you don't even know that you are allowing it in, and then when you're in a situation, you're like, "Oh, yeah, that's how so and so handled something," or "That's the way they treated people," or "That's the way they went about running a meeting or getting input," or whatever it is. It sticks, and maybe unperceivably you are, kind of changing who you are.
I'm curious if this has ever happened to you, but have you ever witnessed someone starting a conversation with you looking for guidance? You give them some guidance and you realize that you should take your own guidance.
Yeah.
That's definitely
Yeah,
happened to me. So I
sure.
think, the idea of being open to guiding or mentoring or being on that the giving side, I think is just as powerful, because when we get to think about someone else's decision disconnected, we get pretty smart, you know, as a species. There's a trick if, you're questioning something, and just pretend you sat down in an airport and some stranger asked you the same question, what advice would you give them? It usually comes like that. And sometimes we don't listen to ourselves.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, I think this is a great topic. I hope that people listening are thinking about the times where um, they can be more open to guidance. And like you said, it doesn't mean knocking on doors and say, will you be my mentor? But just being open to the idea of conversation, connecting with communities that are in similar situations. And then also looking for the opportunity to share with people who might, they might be protecting themselves, thinking they're supposed to know the answer they don't know, and you know the answer to.
Right. And I'd say just don't be afraid if you end up in a situation where there's people that are clearly smarter, better, and you feel like my son that you don't belong. Or at my point in my career where I didn't feel like I belonged, don't be afraid of that. Lean into it and ride it through, and um, you'll be better off because of it.
Thanks for listening to the Practice Leader Podcast. If you're feeling the weight of challenges in your practice, know this: the problems you're struggling with today don't have to remain problems. There is a path forward, and you're not walking it alone.
Each week, we'll be here with insights, ideas, and real-world conversations to help you move forward from chaos to clarity.
See you next week.